Good day to you. This is Anna Galactic, broadcasting to you from Chico, California, on this 18th day of January. We're in the second part of a two-part series on a Euclidean proof for a different space than the one that Euclid used. All of science has used linear space forever and nothing besides. Because of that, Einstein was forced to compose gravity into a non-spherical space, which has disorganized science completely. And we, in our first episode yesterday, the first part of this construction, we discovered that mathematics has been taught to us incorrectly from the very first grade. Linear algebra was absolutely required. There's no way that Euclid ever could have understood the sphere. Is the reason why astrophysics is having a problem, is exactly the reciprocal reason for why quantum mechanics is having its problems. Only add is a legal operation on the line. Everything else is nonsense. We've tried to use division and multiplication as if we knew what we were doing. I've proved that nobody has ever known what they're doing with division. We drew the line, found out that makes a sphere, that embeds the line in the sphere, and then we can bootstrap the universe with two numbers. Infinity over 1 at the edge, and 1 over infinity at the center, and that's as far as we got. We multiply those together, and it makes a sphere at the center of the universe. And the universe has no point center. It has a sphere at the center. And this universe is the universe in the mind. It's only in our head. There's no geometry in the universe. It's inside the human mind, and that's the only place that it exists. Okay? You need to bear that in mind at all times as we proceed. This is purely a human mental construct. It's a pure fantasy to imagine the universe. That does not in any way affect or replace or even explain the universe. Is to make it in your head. You know why that's so important to realize? The universe already makes itself in your head. And anything you add to it, you're wrong. You can simply go out tonight, assuming you have a clear sky, with or without a telescope or binoculars, look up at the night sky, you're saved. So where we left off yesterday, we drew the line, we found the spherical universe, and then we created the calculus, the integral 1 at the edge, and the infinitesimal 1 at the center. And then we call that 1 over infinity at the center. That's the only infinitesimal in the whole universe. Everything that Cantor did, and really all the mathematicians throughout time with their number theory and everything else, it's all gone. That was just for the linear algebra playpen. And now it's time to grow up and face the real universe. To a higher threshold, that's all we can do. It's an endless fish ladder. To get to heaven, what happens when you get to heaven? Well, you try to get to the next heaven. You're never going to reach all the way to the top, but you'll never go all the way back to the bottom either. So we have one number at the edge that makes a bounded space, and now we have a new geometry. Does it have a number system? Well, it has two numbers. 1 over infinity at the center, that is the calculus infinitesimal that redefines calculus for real space, because we created the universe the correct way and fixed mathematics and redefined addition and division, which addition was okay. It works on the line, but division does not. And so it belongs to the sphere. That's what we discovered, and that makes sense because we do see spherically. We see linearly and we see spherically, and we've only used linear. So now we're going to use spherical, and now you have the geometry in your mind for that. You're now ready to face the universe. You never had been, and anyone who does not yet know what I just said, cannot face the universe, and that's why nobody can understand anything. You have to see it the way it is, not the way you want. It's not a matter of blame. It's just a matter of either just not knowing, which is almost certainly universally the case. There's not really a conspiracy, and nothing is really going wrong. But this is important to understand how the universe actually begins with a sphere. So now we need the number system for spherical space. You might ask why? So we can compute it. We're actually going to compute. And we do have computational numbers in the system, so let's get going. We covered 10 steps yesterday, beginning with the antipodal theorem and the Bootstrap theorem, and then the rediscovery of the true nature of arithmetic, which never was taught right. Now we got that. And we've gotten rid of the calculus because we've integrated it. And so there's no more infinities and there's no more imaginary space. There's no such thing as complex numbers, and there's no such thing as the Einsteinian formulation of space. That was a mistake. And now we're going to get it right. Because geometrically, you could say that Einstein only made one mistake, and that's a simplifier. So it's best not to judge. And again, I just said one thing. You're always wrong. I said Albert Einstein got it wrong. Well, I'm wrong for saying that, because he did get it right and wrong. Correct? So here's a test question, just so you know what I'm saying with this 2-to-1 business. You're going to have to learn to split your mind and then reintegrate it in order to see the universe, or to see what mathematics means, or to do geometry, or to be rational, or to grow up and be a man, or to evolve. You're going to have to do a couple of things that I tell you to do. And if you don't, you're going to miss out. So you have to say two things at once. So here's your test question to see if you understand. When you use your vision, are you seeing in a straight line, or are you seeing spherically? What's your answer, A or B? If you answered A, you see linearly, you're incorrect. If you answered B, you see spherically, you're incorrect. If your answer was you see both ways, you get partial credit. And we'll leave it at that. It's called superpositional logic. It means the universe uses binary logic with a third component that's invisible. And that's called Hadamard gate logic. It's the basis of qubit computing. It's a 3-component logic system, but it's not trinary logic. We're getting there. But in order to understand any of this, you're first going to have the geometry in your mind so that you'll have somewhere to put information so that it makes sense. With a 3-stick system, you can't. X, Y, Z, you'll have to forget that forever. And it's a great advantage that you do, because you'll never need calculus again, or sine, cosine, or complex numbers, or Albert Einstein's ridiculous inside-out hyperbolic universal geometry. So we left off with a sphere that has a value of 1. Now we're going to construct the numbers. The first number is 2 over 1 because the surface of the sphere is 1 over 1. And Max Planck discovered that the first counting number after 1 is 2. And that's not enough to say, and that's not the way he said it. What he said was, when you have the sphere, which has a value of 1, the first quantum jump is in 2 directions at once. It goes down towards the center of the sphere with a jump from 1 to 1/2. That's halfway to the center. And at the same time, there's a jump out to 2. And there's nothing in between. So the surface of the universe, and now we're talking about real space. This is the actual surface of the universe that physics studies, is a sphere. It's a spherical surface. And you're going to accept that because I just said it. That's called a hypothesis. And now we're going to prove it, that the universe has a spherical surface. So, what Max Planck discovered, and he didn't say it this way, but I'm interpreting it this way. You've heard of the wavelength-frequency relationship. You know that frequency represents energy, right? And you know what the lowest frequency in the universe is. It's 2. It's 2 Planck units of frequency. That means that energy is quantized. And it begins at the number 2. There's no lower number. The universe begins with a number 2. And that's not enough to say. It begins with a split number 2, going out, creating space. It jumps from 1 to 2. And now we're getting spherical space going out to the edge, but it doesn't reach the edge. At the same time that that's happening, time is bending in. Space goes out, time goes in. We're going to find out that I'm wrong. I haven't said enough, but this is the hypothesis phase. And you're allowed to say anything you want in the hypothesis phase. It'll come back and bite you in the ass if you can't prove it. But as long as you're not done with your proof, you can write another Alice in Wonderland if you want. And if anyone's stupid enough to follow along with you, as I hope you're stupid enough to do with me, you just might get to the end. It took 2,000 years to reach this end, so have a little patience, okay? Because you're going to get the gold if you can endure me. I'm trying my best. But this is the hardest problem that has ever faced physics. And I have the answer. So bear with me as I complete this as quickly as I can without racing on ahead of you. Okay? So now we have the universe. It's a spherical surface with space going out. That exactly describes the experience of every child and every PhD. Is space goes out from the center, in this case of the Earth. So the Earth is the center of the universe. And the sphere that we're standing on is literally the center of the universe with nothing inside. Now you know, I'm exaggerating, right? Geometrically, though, it's a very good analogy, and you should think that way because I'm telling you to. You're going to have to trust me. This can be taught to children this way, by the way. The universe is a sphere, and it has an imaginary center. If you can grasp that, you're going to go way past the physics experts, and you're going to know mathematics better than any other human has ever known it, because you're going to see it. Because this is the real mathematics that the universe uses. It's not Euclid's, and it's not the calculus professor's universe. It's the actual universe. Geometry has this magical property that if you get it right, you actually get the answers. You don't need to do anything else. You'll arrive at your goal. That will then depend on you. And I'm afraid that nobody can help anybody else there, but I can definitely give you the tool. So let's go on. We have the universe now with space going out in concentric spheres. These are spherical shells. At the atomic level, we can see it. These are called the electronic orbital shells. Those are quantum shells, exactly what we have right now in our geometry. Is pure spherical space. And the first number after 1 over 1, which is the surface of the universe that we actually can see, is a sphere. We see spherically. This is reality now. Numerically interpreted in the perfect geometry that matches real space. That's never been known to mankind. So this is ultimate. This is the ultimate insight. We have the surface, which has a value of 1. We have reciprocal proportional numbers that completely fill space. Going in, we get the quantum jump of wavelength. Max Planck discovered that. And the highest number for wavelength, this would be going up from the center to 1. Those are fractions of 1. 1 over something. At the center is 1 over infinity. At the surface is 1 over 1. After that, the numbers are larger than 1, and the first one is 2 over 1. The next one is 3 over 1. There are no other numbers at all. And there is no 0. And there is no infinity. We got rid of it. There's nothing irrational. There's no division by 0. There is no way that you can make a mathematical mistake in this system. The only thing we're missing is the metric. And so we're going to complete that right now and close this off at hopefully 40 minutes. So you can see that the numbers are reciprocal on 1, and 1 is the surface of the sphere. And I said that there is no center, but we're going to start out by saying that there is. You can't reach the actual center, what we would call a point. In fact, you could say that that's the only point in the universe, and now we've defined what a point is. I told you this was a discovery vector. I didn't realize that. It's just a restatement of what I already knew, but this is ultimate profound, so I'm a very happy boy right now. I made another discovery today. Let me recapitulate what I just realized. Ha ha! Is we've never had a definition of the point. It's actually what is the misformulation of the Big Bang and the misformulation of the supermassive black hole is because of our misidentification of what is a point. And that's been the subject of enormous debate. Just mental bloodshed as men tear each other's eyes out like faggots over the definition of a point when none of them know what the fuck they're talking about to begin with. That's really what it comes down to. That's why you should always be humble. There may come a day when I regret coming across as pompously as I am now. You know, when you finally step in front of the master, this is what you're going to see. And I really don't want that. But I may be inevitable. I may have no choice. Well, pity me if that's what's going on. But I'm trying to be righteous and good. But I do need you to follow along, absolutely, because this is ultimate critical that you get this without any doubt. This is when you need to actually stop being a scientist and start being a student. Just for this one thing, because I'm giving you the gold. So the new definition of the point that I just realized is that it is the center of this sphere we just created. And that point has a definition. But the realization that I just made is that's the only point in the whole universe. There's only one point, and it has a value of 1 over infinity. And there's only one of those in the whole universe. That's amazing. Well, what that means is it defines every atom, and it defines every star, and it defines the whole universe at once. From the atom to the universe itself, and everything in between that's spherical. Has just one point, and it's always the same value. It's 1 over infinity. And that destroys all the work of Cantor and all the mania over infinities and infinitesimals. Ends the whole thing between Leibniz and Newton, which was just two kindergartners pulling each other's hair and chasing each other around. Just total nonsense, meaningless to argue over Leibniz and Newton or the infinitesimal and the limit, because you're just playing with blocks and you haven't learned, you're not a big boy yet. And it's very important to get used to that, because this is the big boy stuff for the first time in history. This is actually evolution. I'm the new Darwin. And if you have any ideas about biological evolution, you're a retard and you need to read Tom Wolfe's book. So we now have a definition of the point that nobody ever knew. It's way simple. All of this that I'm telling you can be taught to a third grade audience, and I will. I swear on that. And then I'll teach it to PhDs and Nobel Prize laureates, and they're going to sit down at my feet and listen. Probably not. But I just want you to get the idea that you are quite blessed right now to be listening to this. It's not me, my friend. Don't bring me money. Don't bring me gold, incense, and myrrh, because first of all, I wouldn't open the package. And second of all, you're sending it to the wrong guy. I am just a messenger, okay? But it is fun. I really enjoy this role. It's short-lived. I'm not going to live very much longer. But while I'm here, I'm going to have fun. And I'm going to face my God, and then I'll find out what I did wrong. The Lord is merciful, is he not? Allah be praised. Amen. Okay, so let's go on. And forgive me, you, if you think you need to give me forgiveness. I'm sure I could use it. But actually, your forgiveness doesn't matter. Okay, so where were we? We have the universe with only one imaginary space, and it's outside the limit, so we've solved the whole Kurt Gödel. The Gödel's incompleteness theorem, we finally solved that. We got infinity outside the system where it can't bother us. And that solves two paradoxes at once. And by the way, everything that we do from now on will solve two paradoxes at the same time. All the paradoxes that are crushing the life out of science these days, and always have been, in order to solve any of, you just pair them. You find out what there's always two paradoxes. And when we get to the quantum paradox, I'll show you how you can solve that too. With this simple expedient of always remembering the 2-1 harmonic that exists in our minds, which is a mirror of the 2-1 harmonic. It's the basis of the energized universe. We're getting there. So the universe is a spherical surface whose value is 1. And that's the lowest number in the universe. And that's because all numbers converge on 1. And there's nothing less than 1. And it's a pure artifice to say that 1/2 is less than 1. We do say that, and I think you're probably fairly well convinced that it is less than 1. But it is interesting to notice there's really no difference between 1/2 and 2/1. It's the same relationship. But of course I'm not saying enough that I'm wrong. But I'm leading up to something. I want you to get used to questioning everything. Is 1/2 less than 1? You could say yes or no. But if you want to continue to use your concept of spatial separation, the way we're accustomed to thinking of it, which is, here's no space between my hands, although there is. Boscovich will actually point this out. Your hands are not touching, and there's no such thing as no space between two particles. There's always space, but we're just going to imagine it. There's no, because we need to have a dichotomy. Because watch, what's happening? I'm creating space between my hands, correct? Am I reducing the space now? Yes. And now there's no space. Although that's impossible. There's always space. Because there's no center to the universe, other than the sphere. But if you say that it goes to 0, you're incorrect. Nothing goes to 0. And that's called the unextended point. And Boscovich, I finally pointed the right way. I can be trained, because I have to actually look over here. And when I do that, to you it looks like I'm looking right at the document, but I'm actually looking at a blank wall. Whereas if I turn and look at it and start to point at it, to me it's right there, the document. But you can see I'm pointing. So I have to do a flip mirror. So I go, okay, it's over there, but I don't want to point over there. So I'll just pretend that it's a mirror image over here. And now I can just go, I can just go over here, Boscovich, shit, never mind. This concept of a point having no dimension is actually quite important. And it gets us to the Pauli exclusion principle and several other things that are quite important to understand in quantum mechanics is fully explained by this geometry right at the outset. So let's continue and finish this and get the number system so we can all go get a meal or something or get a beer or coffee. So I finally complete this. These are my sunglasses. It's actually getting bright outside. Although, no, here come the clouds again. But yesterday it was so bright. Oh, you got to see yesterday's lecture. Just to see me turn into a creature made of light with two rather scary eyes. In fact, I'm going to watch it after this just to see that again because it's absolutely like something out of Twilight Zone. It's because of the light that was coming. Actually, yeah, well, I'm actually pointing out the window now, so this is correct. Okay, let's finish this up with no more comments. So we have one number, the number 1, which is at the center of the universe and there's nothing less. But let's just imagine there is an interior to this sphere. And that's good for us because then we'll be able to use this visualization of in and out. So 1 is the surface, and if you go into the sphere, you're going in from 1. And the first number that you reach is 1/2, and there is no 3/4. There is no 2/3. These numbers do not exist. Well, not yet. The only numbers that we have, these are called quantum numbers. And the first quantum number is 2/1, proportion 1/2. You could also say that 2/1, which is the frequency, the lowest frequency in the universe, is 2/1. And the lowest, and I am going to say lowest now. This is the reason I went off on that divagation. We want to say lowest in both directions so we can avoid the lowest highest. Because if you have the lowest counting number, but you have to say the highest fraction, that's absolutely bafflingly confusing. And in the long run, you'll wish that you hadn't started out with that convention. Why? Because I said so. Because it's baffling to me. So you're going to have to go along with my weakness on this. So I'm going to say lowest for both numbers. The lowest fraction of 1, I have to add that. The lowest fraction of 1 is 1/2. And then the next higher, now we think of 1/3 as being less than 1/2. It is if you think of going in as going less. But I just want to make this simple for myself. So the 2, the hell is going, what? Look at that. Can you believe that hair? I don't like it. I want it gone. Oh, shit. I just went to the wrong eyebrow because I'm a monkey. Okay. Oh, good. Look at those eyebrows. Now it's poking out. Oh, I don't care. So the first number in the universe is 2/1 times 1/2. And that multiplies to the sphere. So where are those in spherical space? The 2/1 is another sphere that's parallel with the unit sphere. And the unit sphere in real space has a circumference, or you could say a surface. They're equivalent statements, although some would disagree. not with me, you're not going to disagree. So this is a concentric sphere that goes out. And then 3, that's a sphere. And it just keeps going, 3, 4, 5, whole numbers with nothing in between. Until you finally get to the last one. And it's finite. Although, let's leave that open. It's finite with respect to the edge. Okay? It's finite. There's a finite number of concentric spheres. Why can I say that? Because there's one concentric sphere that's at the edge that's imaginary. And by definition, the definition we created for imaginary is you can't reach it. It's the sphere that's outside the system, so we can do an end run right past Kurt Gödel. Gödel's incompleteness theorem requires a genius to get around, and I just happen to be that genius. This is the way to get a coherent, consistent, complete system in total defiance of Kurt Gödel, whom I have now proved to be wrong. And so I'm smarter and better, bigger, faster, jollier than Kurt Gödel, who is one of my heroes. I'm just being an ass. I hope you admire that, because I am an ass. I'll confess that to you, or the children. Children, you're enjoying yourselves? Well, I wouldn't tell them that, because they would already know that. That's why children like me. They look at me and they realize this guy is going to be some fucking fun. I am. Maybe not to you. Well, that's your problem. Maybe you need to become like a little child. I already have, obviously. So we have 2 over 1, 1 over 2. That's the first counting number in spherical space. It's a 2-component reciprocal number. It's actually a proportionality. And both numbers are proportional numbers. It's 2 proportion 1, and then 1 proportion 2. They're reciprocal to each other, aren't they? 1 is less than 1. The other one is greater than 1. And that's true for every number. And they all multiply to 1. Every number in the universe is 1. But the component numbers change. But they change rationally with respect to each other. So this spherical number business is starting to sound like Candyland. We're going to paradise. This is, all of these have 2 meanings. It's just the way language works on Earth. We're going to Valhalla. Now, we're going to Shangri-La. Well, whatever you think of as heaven with pie in the sky by and by, we're going there now. This is the pure mathematics that has no pain in it. You will never feel pain again in mathematics. You're going to be the first emancipated anybody. So let's go on. It's just wonderful, isn't it, to realize your path ahead of you is pure gold. Because of me. So you should send me $1,000, each and every one of you, or I won't tell you anything more. I'm sorry. I shouldn't jest around like this. Okay, now I'm going to be like, okay, now I'm the king from Memphis. You want me to start singing? Of course not. So here we go. Going to finish this up and get our number system. Well, now we have the index. You know what the index of linear space is? It's 1. And what's the index of spherical space? It's 2 split. It has to be split because you have to have room for time. And now we have a 2-component number system, one of which will have space number and one of which will be a time number. And it always multiplies to light speed. Max Planck proved that light speed is the number 1. It's the surface number 1. There are 3 ones in the universe. There's the integral 1, which relieves you of all calculus forever. There's the infinitesimal 1 at the center, which relieves you of the other side of calculus forever. And there is the surface one, which is halfway between the edge and the middle. It's halfway between the center and the edge. It's halfway between the two infinities. And that's the only right definition of infinity. And it's the only right definition of imaginary space is what you get when you multiply the two infinities. Then you're left with imaginary space going out to unimaginary land that you can't reach. That's very important. And the center. And now you see why when you fall through the center in a singularity, you come out at the edge. It's unimaginable and it doesn't mean anything, but they are related. They are the same infinity. So the center of the universe is infinite. But it's infinite reciprocally and in proportion to the infinity going out. And we prefer to see the infinity going out, and it's amazing because we can't see either infinity, but we prefer to think that we can see the big infinity better than we can see the tiny infinity. But they are exactly the same infinity. And so the universe is composed between two imaginary infinities. And that dualizes the solution to Kurt Gödel's paradox. Because what Kurt Gödel said, despite some people's objections, what Kurt Gödel said has two implications that are kind of contradictory. And if you don't know Kurt Gödel's incompleteness theorem, leave a comment and I'll give a lecture on it. But we just solved it for the first time in history. And proving that even my first statement that we just got around Kurt was, once again, I didn't listen to my own directive. That's incorrect. I only said one thing. There are two paradoxes to the incompleteness theorem. And so it's necessary to dualize the miraculous solution so you get it right. We just did. The center of the universe and the edge of the universe are the same infinity, creating the same imaginary space, which closes proportionality for the entire universe as the basis number system. And that's how we get our number system. All the numbers inside the sphere are fractions less than 1, and you never get to the center. There is no center. Except geometrically. You can say there's a center, there obviously is. But if you're going to give it a numeric value, you can't use that value. You can just say that's what it is. 1 over infinity is the number you'll never need, because you can never use it for anything because it's not in the universe. And at the edge, it's the same thing. There's only one number at the edge, but you can't reach it. And that seems like a paradox, and that's actually the solution to why we experience paradoxes at all. We just solved the paradox of the paradox. And if you think that's turtles all the way down, you're absolutely right. We just solved the turtles all the way down paradox, so you can release that bullshit from your mind. We got to the end. We erased the turtles. They're gone. There's no more turtles. There's no more elephants upholding the four corners of the universe. All of those were parables. We are the religious leaders now, and we're going to tell the world the way things actually are, not according to parables or metaphors. This is directly from the universe. This is the universe telling us what it wants, and I'm just passing it along to you. So the numbers going out are 2, 3, 4, 5, and the numbers going in are reciprocal to 3, 4, 5. And that's absolutely balanced on unity. Now you know everything. Now we're going to apply it across the board throughout astrophysics and quantum mechanics to rewrite every single equation so that it can be understood and computed by a high school student. We're going to rewrite Einstein's field equation, and we're going to, first of all, instantly solve the quantum paradox in one step. But then you'll realize, and I'll show you, it solves about 16 paradoxes all at the same time, but each one is a gem. And Martin Gardner used to write about mathematics, and he'd have puzzles. This erases all of Martin Gardner's kindergarten nonsense. I have the highest respect for Martin Gardner, and if he were sitting here, he would be laughing his ass off. Because we mathematicians understand each other. We're very small creatures. And it's really weird that we have to get pompous and pretentious the way I'm getting now. But I've learned to become totally comfortable with it. And if it offends you, that just makes me laugh all the more. But I am your master now. That's what the universe says. But if you think you're going to give me anything, no, you're not. I'm here to give. I'm here to give for free. And I don't even care if you respect me. I don't need you or anything from you or about you, except for one thing. I need to use you. So that when you get this, you'll take it forward. I'm going to try to go right to the top. If I can talk with Brian Greene, I will. If I can talk, well, the one I really want, and she's married, so don't confuse this with sexual lust. She is very nice to look at, but she has 2 children and a wonderful husband, so don't think that way. I don't. Why, I shouldn't anyway. I'm 8 years old, okay? And I already have a wife, although she's in heaven already. And that's why I have so much fun down here, because I've given up. I'm just waiting to go up to heaven to see what's up there. And then take it from there. I don't care what happens down here. Although obviously I do. That's because I just said one thing and didn't say the other thing. I don't give a fuck what happens down here, but I do give an enormous fuck what happens down here. Superpositional logic. Get used to it. I'm your new professor. And Neil deGrasse Tyson, I just threw him out the window. He landed right on his skull, and he splattered his bowels all over the street. Poor Neil deGrasse Tyson. Well, he shouldn't have been so uppity. I love the man. If he were sitting here, he might not be laughing. He might be looking at me like, you didn't, imply. No, I didn't. Uppity is just, I'm not from the South. I don't have any of that in me. Attitude, I mean. Neil deGrasse Tyson is fine. He's an asshole, and I hate him. But all in fun and jest. If we were together, we'd get along, I'm sure of it, unless he has a problem with me, in which case, fuck him. And Brian Greene, I say that I loathe him, but if we went out and talked, I wouldn't loathe him. He's a human. He's just as stupid as I am. That's the whole point. You can't get stupider than me, okay? I know that. So when I'm pompous and pretentious, it's harmless. Nothing against Neil deGrasse Tyson. Nothing against Brian Greene. I might pity them because, they're going to have to face God someday. And if they told the children something that they shouldn't have, like about the expanding universe or shit like that, and they didn't say, I don't know, which is what they should be saying, well, then they have to face God. They don't have to face me. I don't judge anybody. I better not. 54 minutes. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. I told you I'd get you the number system. Took 55 minutes. And one prior lecture. But that culminates one whole year of work. You got it all on a silver platter. You're now wiser than all the wise men on earth. I don't want to smile because I've split. I live in a desert and I've split my fucking lip so many times. Look at that. I keep looking like, is that cancer? Well, if it is, it hasn't blossomed yet, but I got black marks on my lips. I always chapped. I'm always pulling at it, and then it bleeds, and then I laugh, and it goes split. Oh! I should be putting oil on it like 10 times a day. All right, it's enough ranting. Trying to get to 1 hour. I'm not going to make it. 55 minutes. Stay tuned. We'll have another lecture today and solve the quantum mechanical paradoxes one by one like ducks. I'm not exaggerating, and you know it. So don't send me money. But if you want to reward me for my hard work, get me in touch with Sabine Hossenfelder. I don't care how you do it. I'll give you money, okay? You get me 1 minute with Sabine Hossenfelder. I don't care if it's on the phone or she just listens to one of my lectures. God damn it, leave me alone. And no, you got to listen to this guy. You got to, and she somehow, fuck you, okay, if he'll go away. And then she listens, and then she leaves a comment. I'll give you whatever you want, okay? I'm not sure that would stand up in a court of law. Be honest, and don't be greedy. But I'll give you something good if you get me in touch with Sabine Hossenfelder. Almost an hour, exactly. 56 and a half minutes. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.